Please
What?
come back when you can afford to make a
no,
purchase.
no.
I'm sorry you're having
Come
trouble.
on. My
I'm
kids
sorry
are
you're
starving.
This should help you calm down. Your kids are starving. Carl's Jr. believes no child should go hungry. You are an unfit mother. Your children will be placed in the custody of Carl's Jr. Carl's Jr. F you. I'm eating.
Today we're going to look at the Civics available to Megacorp civilizations, one of the unique empire types in the game, and we're going to think about how powerful each of these civics are and put them in a tier list. So without any further ado, let's dive in and find out what's going on. As ever, we're going to start right here at the bottom in the F tier and work our way up. So the very first thing we have here is Ruthless Competition. It gives you +1 leader level cap, plus 10% leader experience gain, and +1 code breaking. Right at the start of the game, you're going to get a small amount of use out of this plus 10% leader experience gain, but other bonuses from traditions and technologies are going to quickly stack up and overcome this minor bonus you're getting. The +1 code breaking is really not that relevant. If you are pairing this with something like a Criminal Megacorp, it could be slightly better, as you do need slightly better code breaking to find other planets in order to put your branch offices down, but overall it is pretty useless. You could not take this civic at all and still find ways of getting each of the different effects listed in this. Leader level cap you will be quite easily able to find from different sources and get your leaders up to the max level of 10 by the mid to late game. And that basically means taking this civic is an opportunity cost. It means you won't be able to get any of the other good civics that are available to Megacorp civilizations. Anglers is quite an interesting civic. It forces your main species to gain the aquatic trait, which is a fantastic trait, don't get me wrong, but anyone can take the aquatic trait as long as their homeworld is set to ocean preference, then it becomes available, so you don't need anglers to take aquatic. You get no limit on the number of agricultural districts you have on ocean worlds, your farmers are replaced with anglers, and your agriculture districts will create pearl diver jobs on wet climates. Between these two jobs, we end up with a total of less food, but we're going to be getting more consumer goods, and that will cost us a little bit of mineral upkeep. The problem with this is the agriculture districts providing pearl divers gives you a very inefficient job type to produce consumer goods. Yes, you're getting some trade value out of both of these, but it's really not that much. And on top of all of that, you're locked into the Angler Civic for the entire game and cannot get out of it. This actually means that you're also locked into being a Megacorp Empire type for the entire game, and you would never be able to change this even if you really wanted or needed to. And basically, I really do not recommend this civic at all. It is very fun for a roleplay or specific thematic playthroughs, but from a power level, it's just one big massive opportunity cost that I don't think is very beneficial. And if you're enjoying this video, please become indebted to that like button. Now that we're in the C tier, the civics here do represent some positive benefits for your empire, though they almost always come with some quite negative drawbacks. They don't represent giant walking opportunity costs like the F tier, however there are much better civics available to us as a Megacorp empire. Criminal Heritage is a really interesting civic that will completely change the way that you play your Megacorp empire. You cannot add or remove this after the start of the game, and you are also completely unable to form commercial pacts. But don't worry, you will still be able to set up branch offices and play that aspect of Megacorp because of what happens next. So crime on branch office planets increases the branch office trade value, or the branch office value specifically, giving you juicy energy. You get a whole bunch of special crime increasing corporate buildings to build on these different planets, and that will in essence allow you to foster a criminal underworld on these worlds and profit directly from that. You can also build branch offices on the planet of any regular empire that you have no war or a truce with. You get plus 20% infiltration speed and +1 code breaking. Well, what are the issues here? Finding planets to actually put your branch offices down on is much more difficult than with a regular Megacorp, and that's because every empire around you that you could put a branch office on is going to hate your guts. That means you will have to use code breaking and infiltration to increase the amount of intel you have on these other empires to reveal where their worlds are and thus stick your branch offices down. On top of that, it is super easy to get rid of a criminal megacorp's branch office. You simply have to reduce the crime to 0, and after a certain amount of time, if it's rolled for, because it's a random dice roll basically, but after a certain random amount of time, the branch office just shuts and all of your investment goes away. When playing in a single player game, the AI will consistently reduce crime to 0 to boot you off their worlds, and in a multiplayer game, other empires are going to be trying to remove your guts from your precious body. This means that basically, not only is it not massively powerful, it also paints a massive target on the head of your civilization, so I really think they should put a challenging label on this Civic. Private military companies is no longer in the F tier. The last time I did this tier list, I put it all the way at the bottom in the F tier, but now, however, I've got it in the C tier, and why is that? Well, that is because its effects have changed. Now you get plus 20% army damage, minus 20% army upkeep, plus 100 army starting experience. That is all the same. However, the final aspect is you get +1 mercenary enclave capacity. This means you can set up a mercenary enclave with all of the different benefits that entails. And by forming a mercenary enclave, you're going to get access to plus 15% naval capacity for a fee, which is quite good and does make private military companies quite a lot better. However, because you can just pass a simple resolution in the galactic community or take an ascension perk to get this +1 mercenary enclave capacity, I don't think it's that special. The rest of the bonuses are very useless. That's why I've kept it here in the C tier rather than putting it somewhere else like the B tier, because the only real benefit you're getting here is that +1 mercenary enclave capacity. Catalytic recyclers replace metallurgist jobs with catalytic technicians. Catalytic technicians basically use food as the resource to refine into alloys. Why is this so terrible? Well, basically, food is the worst and most useless resource in the game, and you never want to have an excess amount of food. Yes, by taking this Civic, it does remove some of the burden on minerals in your empire, and thus means you don't need as many mining districts. However, it is pretty easy to come by minerals, and you really don't want to be building up lots of these excess agriculture districts. Yes, you could pair this with something like anglers and have some synergy going there, or just have it on a specific world with lots of food districts, but overall I don't think it's worth a Civic to actually take this one. I think it's not that fantastic, and I really do not recommend you take it. It's a quite low power level, unless you're doing something completely crazy in the late game, like setting up ring worlds, which have lots and lots of food capacity available and also possible alloy output. If you're running just ring worlds, then sure, you could run this catalytic recyclers and you'd have some interesting effects, but overall I can't recommend it. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. Corporate hedonism was once in the S tier for Civics. Now it's all the way down here in the C tier. What is going on? Why have I moved it? Well, what does it do? It gives you the decadent lifestyle living standard, plus 1% pop growth speed from entertainers, and plus 5 amenities from servants. As a Megacorp, you should be getting all of your amenities from merchants. That means you should never have any entertainers or servants, so those two effects should be completely useless. Next up we have the decadent lifestyle, and that living standard has changed a massive amount as of patch 3.3. What does it do now? Well, now the upkeep is 1.5, 0.75 and 0.5 consumer goods per pop at the 3 different tiers. You'll also get some increased trade value from these pops, sure, and lots of extra happiness, absolutely fantastic, but there has been a massive increase in the upkeep levels for this. You could simply take egalitarian and have utopian abundance, and you would have pretty much the same level of consumer good usage amongst your population, because that 1.5 consumer good upkeep on the ruler class is egregious. You're going to have so many rulers as a Megacorp civilization, or at least you should, that you're going to find overall it is cheaper to run utopian abundance and take egalitarian than actually have this darn decadent lifestyle and corporate hedonism. That's why it's in the C tier. I, again, wouldn't massively recommend it, but if you're not going to go egalitarian, it can be useful to boost the trade value output of each of your individual pops, along with their happiness, which will boost stability quite a lot on all of your planets. Now that we're in the B tier, we're about halfway through this tier list, and all of the Civics in this tier either have minor bonuses that are good but not fantastic, or they have quite good bonuses offset by some sort of negative problem. Private Prospectors allows you to build private colony ships. These are much cheaper than regular colony ships, And by building this type of colony ship, you'll be able to colonize the galaxy much faster from a resource perspective than any other Empire type. They also give you minus 33% Empire size from systems, which will help you a small amount, but in general the Empire size from systems is the smallest component of Empire size, and therefore this isn't really that useful. The main bonus here is that you can get a head start on other empires in terms of having more colonies earlier, but as the game goes on, this becomes less and less relevant, whereas the minus 33% Empire size from systems becomes more relevant even though its penalty is pretty negligible. Trading posts allow you to increase your total starbase capacity by +4. Now, on the surface, that is quite a good bonus. However, as a regular empire, as a non-Gestalt empire, you're not going to get access to the solar panels. This means you'll only really get an economic benefit from having more hydroponics bays on these star bases. So yes, it is good, it is useful. However, I really don't rate this much higher than the B tier. I know there are critics out there who disagree with me completely on this and think the extra +4 starbase capacity is completely wonderful, but I'm just not in that camp. I don't think it is that overpowered. If you're a hive mind or machine intelligence, on the other hand, I would completely agree, but as a regular biological empire, it's a no from me. But what do you think about this tier list? Do you agree with my placements? Let me know down in the comments below. Media Conglomerate gives you +5% citizen pop happiness and -5% war exhaustion gain. That first bonus is actually relatively minor. An extra 5% citizen pop happiness will translate into about a 3% bonus to stability, which is thus about a 2% increase to resource output. Plus 2% to resource output doesn't sound particularly amazing. However, that -5% war exhaustion gain, if you're in lots and lots of wars, is going to be very, very relevant. When you stack that with other war exhaustion gain bonuses, you could end up in a situation where your empire is able to outlast other empires and not get as much war exhaustion, and thus fight a longer and harder conflict. And that's why I put it up here in the B tier. Without that war exhaustion gain, it would definitely be down in the C tier because its bonuses aren't that fantastic. Public Relations Specialist is the Megacorp version of Diplomatic Corps. This gives you +2 available envoys and +10% diplomatic weight in the galactic community. The reason it's here in the B tier is that yes, envoys are going to be useful, and as a commercial empire you're going to want some of them to set up lots of improved relations and start setting up commercial pacts, but you're probably, and I'm going to assume this, going to be using Xenophile of some degree to get a bonus to your trade value and thus already have some extra envoys available there. This can be quite a solid pick for a third Civic if you're going to be pushing for the Galactic Custodian or the Galactic Emperor. The extra diplomatic weight and envoys are going to help, but overall it's nothing too amazing or too special, and that's why it's where it is. Corporate Death Cult allows you to construct sacrifice temple buildings and also allows you to construct sacrificial shrine holdings. On top of that, you can use the sacrifice edicts, which can be very, very powerful. If you take the Clone Army origin and combine it with Corporate Death Cult, you will definitely find it is massively, massively powerful. But for other empires, if you're sacrificing your own pops that are having to grow in a normal and regular way, I don't actually think it's that fantastic, because you're losing out on pops to make your other pops more efficient, and over the long run, over a long enough period of time, you actually would prefer to have that extra pop growth than continually be sacrificing pops in your empire. On top of all of that, as of this current patch, if you don't have a sacrifice edict active, death priests are in fact less efficient than regular priests. Welcome, weary travelers, we've made it all the way up here to the A tier. Now, each of the Civics at this level in the tier list are very powerful in their own right. They can be as powerful as some of the Civics up in the S tier, however they have more niche uses and can be somewhat harder to pull off and get the maximum effect from them. So what do we have in the A tier? Brand loyalty has had an update as of the current patch. You're now going to be getting plus 15% monthly unity and plus a 25 edict fund. The edict fund is going to be really, really useful right at the start of the game. It's going to mean you can turn on some of the larger edicts without needing to get extra edict fund from other sources or suffer the indemnity of having to use some of your excess unity or regular unity generation. And on top of that, you're going to be getting this lovely plus 15% monthly unity. Unity is also more important as of the current edition of the game. We need it to get traditions, and we need more of it than ever before. So having brand loyalty is quite a nice and useful thing to have in your empire. Although as time goes on, the Edict Fund will be worse, it won't be as useful, but the monthly Unity will be more and more useful, so I think it will kind of balance out. Gospel of the Masses is a very flavourful and, in my opinion, quite a fun civic. What does this do? Well, it gives you plus 50% spiritualist ethics attraction. You are able to build the Temple of Prosperity corporate building. It's quite a fun building that not only gives lots of spiritualist ethic attraction to whichever planet it is built on, but also gives a worker level priest job, and that is really quite cool. You also get plus 0.33 trade value per free spiritualist pop on all of your empire's planets or planets with branch offices. Basically, if you can go out and find some spiritualist empires, form commercial pacts with them, and set up branch offices on their planets, Gospel of the Masses is going to be worth an absolute fortune to you, and it is fantastic for those reasons. However, if you don't have any other spiritualist empires around, or you don't want to go spiritualist, it's pretty crap. And you do have to be spiritualist to some degree to take this. Last, we have the Permanent Employment Civic. This allows you to construct posthumous employment center buildings, or alternatively on holdings, so vassal empires, you can construct redeployment center holdings. Pops with the zombie trait will be created through organic pop assembly. You'll also start with 3 or 4 zombie pops on your planet. Whilst yes, the zombie trait isn't fantastic, it does reduce the output of these pops by 25%, but it should stack with a cloning building, meaning if you go for the biological ascension, you can get quite a bit of extra pop growth. On top of all of this, defeated organic guardians can be resurrected by you. You have the ability to bring back those monsters from the dead. This means that you're getting extra pop growth, which is really, really good, and you're also getting some cool extra benefits too. Be careful, after 80 to 120 years, you'll also gain the Zombie Contract Manipulation Empire modifier, so do watch out for that one. If you're enjoying this video and the other videos on this channel, you can help to support the channel by either becoming a channel member, clicking the join button down below, or becoming a channel Patreon. There's a link to that down in the description. You can also use the super thanks to directly support the channel as well. Or finally, you could purchase something from the Humble Bundle store using the link down in the description below. This is the last tier in this tier list. Everything in the S tier is the creme de la creme of civics as far as Megacorp civilizations are concerned. What do we have here and why is it so powerful? Well, free traders, the first civic I'm going to look at here is the Win More Civic as far as Megacorp is concerned. It is an auto pick for basically any empire, any corporate empire, because what it's going to do is give you plus 10% trade value and plus 10% branch office value. Those two perks are completely fantastic and there is never a downside to these. They will always improve your empire economically, and therefore it is pretty much an auto pick unless you want to go for something kind of roleplay or in some slightly different direction. As of the release of Stellaris Overlord, franchising has had a massive rework and it's now really quite good. You're going to get minus 25% empire size from branch offices, which is pretty much neither here nor there, but then we get quite a few of the good bonuses. Plus 0.5 monthly loyalty from subjects. You can construct the franchise headquarters holding building. You'll get no loyalty loss from multiple subjects. I'll read that again. No loyalty loss from multiple subjects. This is equivalent to an entire ascension perk and basically means you can have as many vassals as you want and they're never going to have a loyalty penalty because of that. This is the most important civic for Megacorp empires if you want to have lots of different vassals, which I would recommend you do in this current edition, as it's definitely worth it to have extra vassals, not just go out and conquer additional lands too. As a Megacorp empire, you can actually set up branch offices on any planet if you are the overlord of that planet's owner. Yes, if they're your subject, you'll get to put a branch office there without needing a commercial pack, no, without needing their agreement. And that makes franchising really powerful. Yes, you cannot give expansion prohibited terms of agreement, and you cannot give limited diplomacy terms of agreement, but even then, that's not such a big deal. You'll be able to make do fantastically well by setting the agreements at a slightly more favorable level for your vassals without these two specific laws or vassal contract terms. So don't worry about it. Go out, use franchising, conquer the galaxy, and have fun. Indentured Assets is still a very powerful civic. This gives you plus 10% slave pop resource output and ensures that you have a 35% enslaved pop ratio for every species in your empire. When you combine the original benefits you're going to get from slavery, which is reduced consumer goods upkeep as well as increased resource output anyway, you're going to find that Indentured Assets is really good from a resource perspective. It is as simple as that. Naval Contractors is more powerful than ever before. You're going to get plus 15% naval capacity and, as of Overlord, plus 2 mercenary enclave capacity. That means if you set up at least 1 mercenary enclave and then get the additional bonus from that enclave of another plus 15% naval capacity, this specific civic can give you plus 30% naval capacity all by itself. That's before we even get into the benefits of having mercenary enclaves, which give you dividends and other such nice things. Even if you don't hire the mercenaries themselves and you let other empires hire them, you're still going to reap a whole host of rewards like extra energy, extra research, extra ships, the list goes on. The last one we have in this tier list is the Master Crafter Inc. And what does this do? Well, it is the same as Masterful Crafters for a regular empire. It replaces artisan jobs with artificer jobs, which are much better than the regular artisans. They produce more consumer goods. They also produce a bit of trade value and engineering research. And then the best benefit you're going to get from this is the +1 building slot per 3 industrial districts. That means that you are not going to need as many housing or city districts in order to max out your building slots on every planet, and that is really powerful at the moment in Stellaris as it stands today. For example, if you take Master Crafter Inc. with Gospel of the Masses and go for a Spiritualist start, you're going to end up with an extra building slot right out of the gate and have a wonderfully high trade value due to all of those Spiritualist pops. Choosing your empire's civics only determines part of the story of your empire's success. Another large part is governed by the origin you choose right at the start of the game. If you'd like to know more about origins in Stellaris, click the video on screen now.